Good afternoon, everyone. We wanted to welcome you all to our webinar on how to run a successful municipal innovation challenge. My name is Joseph Buyunis, and I'm here with my colleague John, and we've got a few slides that we wanted to walk through to talk about the ODX Civic Challenge and what we learned in a pilot that we ran with the City of Guelph last year. Before I continue, I just want to make sure that folks can see the slides. So if somebody could send a message in the chat, but it looks like we may be sharing the wrong window here, so let me just fix that. There we go. Okay, so that looks like it's working. So the goals today that we have are to get everybody to develop a collective understanding of what this Civic Challenge program is, and then share some of the learnings that we had from our pilot challenge with the City of Guelph. We'll talk a little bit about ourselves and about Canada's Open Data Exchange, and then we'll get right into the things that we learned from running the pilot with the City of Guelph, as well as some of the best practices that we are adapting and we're putting forward to folks in government with respect to how to engage with startups and scale-ups to do innovative procurement. We'll also talk about some of the benefits of pursuing an innovation challenge to government, and specifically what the mechanism was that we used with the ODX Civic Challenge. And we're not going to get into the special interest zone today, but that's something that we're happy to follow up with folks on afterwards if they're interested. So as I said, my name is Joseph. I'm the data EIR here at Canada's Open Data Exchange. My background is all consumer technology product management, but over the past year and a half, I've been working at ODX to create programs and training materials to help drive the commercial use of open data. I also spent a fair amount of time working with companies, mentoring them on how to use open data effectively, as well as on how to develop a data strategy that helps them grow and helps them deliver great value to their customers. And then my colleague John Chiappetta is responsible for projects and initiatives here at ODX, and he's the fellow who's spending most of his time running things like our ODX Ventures program, as well as executing civic innovation challenges with different municipalities. So Canada's Open Data Exchange is a public-private partnership that was founded about 3 years ago. We are unique in that we are focused on the commercial application of open data. ODX came about because the government of the day made the observation that Canada had been spending a lot of time and money to create open data and release open data sets, but that the private sector might not have been able to use these open data sets to do commercial development. And so ODX was founded to work with companies as well as government to understand what's going on in the world of open data, what kinds of data is useful to companies or data are useful to companies, and how government can support companies to more effectively make use of open data. As part of that, we provide tools and services and resources to reduce the time to value for the use of open data. We're funded with about a $3 million grant from the Government of Canada, and that was matched by contributions from our industry partners, D2L and OpenText, as well as the University of Waterloo.
So thank you, Joseph. My name is John Chiappetta, as Joseph introduced. And basically what we're going to go through today is talk about innovation challenges and what we learned through completing a pilot program last summer and what we're going to do with that going forward, as well as what the community and drive innovation within your municipality. As I said, so we did a pilot project. So this was a pilot project for ODX Civic Challenge, and that was ran with the City of Guelph. It was the City of Guelph Civic Solutions Accelerator. And what that was designed to do was rework the RFP process to really identify municipal problems that are generally too complex to be addressed in the traditional RFP process, and then challenge those with the capacity to answer those questions and provide solutions to really step up and come to the table. And in this case, it was startups, scale-ups, and entrepreneurs within, not only within the region, but across Canada as well. And basically what that did was provided the city of Guelph with their own almost in-house R&D lab. Now, at the end of this, they had a couple finalists come out of this, and we'll get into that in a bit. But the process itself was very unique, because what we hear across the board is that one barrier to innovation is the traditional RFP process, because it really highlights and favors those large enterprises, because it really mitigates risk. And rework that process in a way where it actually allowed startups and SMEs and scale-ups to really come in and open up that market to them, so they can provide their skills and what they're really good at to answer these problems that traditionally get overlooked or almost ignored because of a lack of ability to really address them. And so this might look like a lot of information right now, but let's walk through it step by step and really dive into what this program is about. So the ODX Civic Challenge stepped back and it said, okay, what was wrong with the traditional RFP process, and why wasn't startups and scale-ups involved in this? And we identified that it was a pretty linear path, and there wasn't much input or collaboration through the process. So we really highlighted ways where we can break this down and start to engage with different stakeholders to provide a different perspective and really bring expertise to the RFP process. So this all starts in the problem discovery portion of this. So we see on the top left here of the screen that you have a bunch of city departments, and then you have the Civic Challenge. And what that is, it's a two-way street. This is us, so a third party that focuses on innovation and reworking processes and driving engagement with the civic community. And we engage with multiple departments at once to really identify what problems are, eventually help identify and define that problem. So we define that problem in a way where it's commercially applicable. So the difference there is, sure, there's thousands of problems that a municipality could have, and there's 1,000 answers to those, but not all of them drive commercial engagement. And that's what we really focused on, those commercially viable aspects and questions that need answers. So it all starts with a two-way street, and it's an engagement process with each of the city departments, where we talk to them and we figure out what those tension points are, and then we work on addressing those and then properly defining those and identifying those. And then that goes in the RFP process. Here in Ontario, we found a piggyback clause, which Joseph will speak to when he talks about the outcome of the Guelph and the Guelph Challenge. But essentially, it allowed the RFP process to be opened up and all these scale-ups and startups to be welcomed in, because of the end clause, where it was basically an integrated pilot project. So after the RFP was released, qualifying companies were then invited to pitch to the city and then to the stakeholders as well. So we were engaged in that process as well. And then we selected a few finalists, and those finalists were then embedded into the municipality itself to work hand in hand with the departments, as well as with their local innovation hub. And in this case, they provided funding, mentorship, and then of course, access to government resources. And so that process took about 3 months. And at the end of that, it was a very interesting aspect, because what we worked in the RFP process, what isn't traditionally there, is 3 possible outcomes. So as you see on the bottom right now, in the actual implementation of this, you aren't commit to purchase and then live with the solution. At the end of this, if you had 3 months where you learned a lot, but it turns out that that wasn't the solution you were looking for, you don't have to purchase. You can walk away from it and then apply what you've learned elsewhere. Alternatively, if you liked what you saw over the past 3 months, and then you said, you know what, this could do well if we had some more time to work on this, you extend that embed period and you work with the companies a little bit more. And that might lead to the third option, where it's the commit to purchase. We had a great 3 months, let's move forward with it. And then let's work with this solution and have the company deliver the solution. And really, that's what's unique about this. And it's not just innovation, driving innovation into the municipality, it's innovating with current policies and processes that are in place. And by allowing this, you really mitigate risk and allow for innovation without risking significant capital up front. How this process works itself, so how we're involved in this, is threefold. First, we identify and frame the problem, and that was with the city departments, as you saw on the last slide. And we work with them hand in hand and them as well as our other partners who are involved to identify one or more functions or services areas that need to focus on. And like I said, this is with a commercially viable spin to it. There's thousands of questions, but not a commercial aspect to it, then there's not a market for it. So we really focus on that. As you know, at ODX, we're here driving the commercialization of open data. From there, the interesting aspect that we bring is through the CDMN network, we find companies across Canada that can help address these issues. So we bring the companies to you. We focus on your local civic community first, and then the companies that might not hear of your problems, but have solutions to those. And then finally, we help with developing solutions, whether that's facilitating conversations between the municipality and finalists, providing mentorship, or just guidance along the way. We like to be there hand in hand, and we really like to make this process as smooth as possible. And basically what we learned from this and what can be applied not only to this, but anything to do with open data or innovation within your municipality is really identify an internal champion. What we learned from Guelph is that without an internal champion really driving the city departments to be engaged, this probably would have stagnated along the way many times. So basically choose an individual to drive engagement, to really get everybody inside the municipality excited about this and provide the necessary knowledge to why this is going to be beneficial in the end and what's so exciting about this. When you have that champion in place, then the process is much easier because us at ODX, for instance, we have a contact point that's always open doors. We don't have to chase people down. They're just as excited as we are. The next best practice, it comes to problem definition. Now, what's seen too many times across the board is that, and this is with anything in the public sector that we've noticed, is that the solutions are always prescribed. And what I mean by that is that when a public sector problem is identified, they define the solution that they're looking for. We're looking for this, we're looking for that. And that goes right back to the traditional RFP. You define what you're looking for instead of defining the problem. And when you define the problem, then you leave the solution to be open to interpretation. And then you can bring not only a plethora of options to the table, but then you could bring something that's specifically tailored to what you need instead of what you think might be the solution. I mean, like I said 1,000 times, there's a ton of different questions and problems that could be identified within a municipality. But at the end of the day, municipalities aren't in the business of solving those problems. Put it out to the companies who do that literally day in and day out. And then finally, the best practice is collaboration. Open up the bidding process and embed the finalists for further collaboration. What we've seen here is that one of the major things that differentiates this program from any other program is that there's buy-in at the end. If you want to compare this to something like a hackathon, when you put out a hackathon, you have all these great companies and entrepreneurs and students come in and they demo great products, and at the end of the day they come up with great solutions, but there's no buy-in. It's congratulations, you made a fantastic product, maybe go do something with it, we'd love to hear what you do with it. And that's where the conversation ends. Here there's already an RFP process put in place. The companies are already engaged with the municipality. And then at the end of it, because the municipality and the departments within it have worked so closely with these companies, they know what they're getting and they're excited to get their hands on a final product. So collaboration definitely is key. Define the problem that you want and definitely identify an internal champion.
Sure. So before I do that, I'm just going to quickly switch windows and make sure people are there. You're sure this is on here, right?
Yep.
Oh, that just takes you there. Okay, sorry. Everybody's really quiet. So what makes for a good innovation challenge? The problems need to be impactful. And this is something that we had learned when we first designed the challenge program. There's a body of knowledge out there with respect to doing open innovation. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is that the challenge problem should be widely accepted as issues by the kinds of individuals who would submit solutions, or companies in this case. And they also should reflect areas of potential investment. And so the trick is, as John alluded to finding challenges that were relevant to the municipality that was sponsoring the challenge, but also finding problems that lined up with the kinds of things companies were investing in and innovating in. And we'll give you a couple of examples of that in a moment. Ownership. So we had to engineer a process with the city that allowed us to create an RFP and a client services agreement that made sure that entrants were treated fairly with respect to intellectual property. So not only do entrants own the intellectual property that they generate, but there was also language in the client services agreement that effectively explained what would happen if the project terminated early or if things went off the rails, just so that there was complete clarity on behalf of both the entrant and the city around what would happen if the project stopped at different stages. Sustainability. So again, this is the idea that the sponsor, particularly, as well as the entrant, are obligated to support the solution. Again, we want to avoid the hackathon problem of a really cool solution getting 70% built and being abandoned. And so we made sure that the entrants who were producing solutions were willing to commit to supporting to them for a period of time and had the financial means to be likely to be able to support the solution they were putting forward over a period of time. Likewise, from the municipality's point of view. So had the city, for example, been looking for a transit application, we would have expected the city to commit to supporting a winner as an official transit application for some period of time as well. Support, and then of course we needed to provide participants with access to the data, the staff, the business users within the municipality, data analysts, data engineers, and software. And I can tell you one specific example in the city of Guelph where one of the problem statements had to do with the building permit process, and the city spent a fair amount of time producing extracts out of their building permit management system so that the startup could import that data and present it as part of their solution. So we really need to make sure that there's support both on the small p political level, where people in the bureaucracy were committed to making this happen, and also from a technical point of view, where people in departments like IT and operations could give participating companies access to what they needed to make it happen. So the case of the city of Guelph, we went to market with 3 problem statements, only 2 of which are shown here. Water was about effectively helping Guelph Water Services reduce their infrastructure upgrade costs by coming up with smarter ways to do leak detection and water use reduction, short of ripping up roads and replacing water mains every so many years. And then planning notices. So the city also had an issue where when there was a change to zoning, for example, or some other land use change, the province of Ontario dictates pretty specifically what information needs to be shared with citizens and how, with respect to mailers and signage and those sorts of things. And the city wanted to see if there was a way to make it easier for the public to provide feedback on planning decisions within that pretty regimented framework. The companies that were selected as finalists were Alert Labs and Milieu, respectively. Alert Labs deployed an IoT sensor on the ratepayer side of the water meter and allowed the ratepayer to understand their water usage and also have custom alerts so that you would avoid this problem of a ratepayer suddenly having an equipment failure on their side like a toilet that's running all the time, and not knowing about it for another 2 months because of the length of billing cycles. So with the Alert Lab solution, the homeowner or the building owner would know right away that there was a problem, because all of a sudden there would be new water usage, and they could address that. And so if you take that reduction at one site, at one house or one building, and then you multiply it across the entire city, you can start to realize that there's the potential for reducing a lot of water wastage and a lot of water usage without having to dig up the roads and replace infrastructure. Similarly, Milieu built a SaaS platform to identify the people that needed to be notified of planning changes, notify them where possible through email or through a mobile alert, and then come up with ways to collect feedback in a manner that was compliant with the Planning Act requirements. And they also applied machine learning on top of that, so that if there were a whole bunch of submissions, the poor planner who was reviewing them could bring some order to them without having to grind through everyone one by one to start with.
So at the end of this, what you want to ask yourself is, there's a ton of benefits to companies, and I can go into that separately. But what I want to focus on is the benefits to government. And so through the ODX Civic Challenge and other innovation challenges as well, what this really does is it injects the startup and SME level innovation into government. This is something that doesn't happen through a lot of tracks. It is very hard to happen through certain things like hackathons because of that lack of engagement. And this is something that can really drive that level of innovation. What this does that's also unique is the targeted problem solving techniques. What we bring to the table here is the problem identification and definition is very unique to the ODX Civic Challenge. And it's something that we created this because, one, we saw a need for it, but two, we saw that nobody else was doing it this way at all. There wasn't that open discourse between a third party and the city to say, what problems do you have and how can we really solve those? How can we use the power of our network of startups and SMEs to solve those problems? Of course, the next biggest is agile procurement. This is something that across the board, the public sector is ready to tackle, and it's whoever can do this the fastest, the best. What is agile procurement? And it's really getting exactly what you want. It's reworking the RFP process to finally get the solutions that you need instead of the solutions that you're prescribed. Finally, you get access to early stage companies from across Canada. This is through our CDMN network, and this is something that we are in a unique position to bring to the table. This is a great opportunity to access companies that can really address those problems that you have and provide unique perspectives on how to get the answers that you need. And like I mentioned with agile procurement, the RFP process encourages innovation. As you saw from the diagram above, this really drives innovation from start to finish. It's the RFP process itself is definitely formed in a way where the outcomes are that mitigate risk, provide an advantage to the municipality, and also drives your civic community and those within your community and the companies as well. And then finally, we bring the proven toolkit to the table. This is an evaluation process that has been tried and it's proven itself in Guelph, and we're ready to scale that to other municipalities that are interested. And all that is we want to take the municipality's open data and really create a program around it that fosters the growth of the communities within companies within their local community. Next steps from here would be contacting myself, and my email should be on the screen there, john.chipetta@codx.ca. And basically from here, if anybody would like to have a phone call about next steps, how we can bring this to your community, I'd love to have that phone call. We can set up some time. And yeah, Joseph, would you like to add anything else?
And all I would add is, if you have questions right now, you're welcome to ask them through the question link on YouTube. Failing that, please do reach out to John. And I'll also say, this is something I meant to include in the benefits slide. The the companies that get involved in these sorts of challenges are not just the companies that are currently selling to government. You'll often get companies that have solutions that are kind of adjacent to what the public sector wants, but haven't thought about selling to government before. And so, there's an opportunity there to bring kind of truly new thinking into the ecosystem, thinking from outside the government IT space, and bring it to bear on your solution, and also help those companies discover a new market in selling to government. And that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your time. And again, please write down my information here. If you have any questions, an email is great. And then we can definitely set up a phone call and hopefully bring an innovation challenge to your municipality. Thanks again.